Hi, everyone. It's Deborah Hamilton, and you've come. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Let me unmute everyone. Um, everybody can hear me? Just
Can hear
say
you.
yes. Perfect. Hi, Diane, honey. Hi, Donna. Welcome. We're so glad to see you. I know that Connie is not going to be here, doctor's appointment, and Sally is not going to be here, tax time. Yeah. So we're all here together. We're going to talk about the MAP plan. We're going to hear about how everybody's doing. I have 3 articles I'd love to share with you all because they have to do with making a MAP plan and understanding the times that we're in, and the needs we as pet owners need to rise to. So without further ado, I'm going to start with you, Diane, so poor Donna knows what goes on here when we ask people how they're doing and what their pets are doing. Because I know it's, what, 125 degrees there or something in Arizona?
It's close. It's been very hot, unseasonably hot, which is saying something because it's always hot. But yeah, we had to cancel Obedience and Agility and Rally because it was just too stinking hot. At 7 o'clock at night, it was still over 100. So my dogs are crazy. They're going stir crazy because they go outside and they get hot real fast. So then they come inside and run all over my house. And there was an article this morning with a headline here that said, COVID cases on the rise and Arizona's testing is a shit show. And
Great.
That is exactly what the headline really said. I've never seen a news headline say that.
I'd love for you to send that to me because I love to keep those together when I put together my program about, what COVID means to pet owners, because the shit show is part of why we need to make sure we have a plan.
Because yes. I've actually never read that before in a news article. I was like, I understand the concept, but I've never seen a newspaper put that in print before.
I know.
And actually, it was one of those internet news flashes that came up. And I'm like, does this really say it's a shit show? Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And you live in the state of shit shows. So
and it really is a shit show.
Yeah, New York is a shit show too. And so is my sons, because they're in California and Florida. So I have,
Florida is, I think, more of a shit show.
Yes.
But Arizona's right up there with it right now. It's pretty ugly. It's getting pretty scary.
But you're safe, and you have all your information up since we've been getting together.
Yes,
since
we are safe, and Good. I talked. As a matter of fact, I had Flamey up at the vet for her spider bite, which is now healing nicely. And
great.
I went over everything with her, and I also just reordered all of my heartworm medications and all my medications so that if we have a problem with people not wanting to deliver to Arizona, etc., I will have everything I need. The only thing we can still do right now, I won't really call it dock diving. When we go to dock diving class, we don't really dive off a dock because my dogs don't know how to swim yet. But once a week, we are learning to swim.
Yes.
And so, as a matter of fact, I was out there for an hour last week, and I couldn't believe it. I came home and I was like totally sunburnt, and I was like, what the heck? It didn't even dawn on me.
Yeah, because you're watching them. You're not paying attention.
Well, and I'm not a beach person, so I would never think about it.
Yeah, but now you do. So Donna, welcome, and tell us a little bit about your kids and what brought you here.
I was interested in more in the final plans for if something happens to me.
Yep, we do that every week, so we're so glad you're here.
I kind of have a plan in place, but I didn't know if there's more that I could learn to be able to do, what all the steps are. I show in confirmation mainly. I do a little bit of, I'm learning, doing some trick dog. I have long coat chihuahuas mainly.
Oh, wonderful.
We're doing some trick dogs. I was part of the learning cluster in Oklahoma and finished one of my boys.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And, but yeah, just learning about, I've got folders for every one of my dogs, and inside the front cover of the folder, it says, in case of my death and my husband's death, this is where my dog should go, and lists a phone number and everything. But I'm sure there's more I should be doing.
Well, before COVID, there was a lot more you could do. So I always, I don't know how to put this, but I say, you've got half the job done because you've got something in writing if you die. However, if you don't die, those plans, especially if they're just in your will, don't come to fruition. And the money that you might have put in your will, if you have a will, isn't attainable. You can't get it out. So the MAP plan, which is what this stands for, helps you make a plan that actually is immediately available for people to know what you want to do, how you want to do it, where your dogs are supposed to go, where if the people have to spend money to feed them or bring them to the vet, that comes from. Because making that plan that thinks of all these things, and now with COVID, as Diane's been here since March, because this call's been on since March, and a lot of people come once or twice, but I have a good community that comes every week because there are things that come up that we haven't even thought about. And, you know, going from state to state, what are the rules in the state? And if they want you to quarantine, what happens to your dog if you can't find a place to quarantine with your dog and you're, you know, you have an issue? So these are the kind of things that we address here. So the first thing, of course, is the M, make a plan, which you made a plan, which is great. But then in the plan, we always ask you to address all the needs of the pet. When do they get their heartworm? When do they get, you know, their vaccinations? Who's their vet? What are they afraid of? What are they, who and what are they good with? What aren't they good with? They hate cats. They love other dogs, you know, that kind of stuff. So that whomever is coming has a sort of a roadmap to that dog's personality, which of course makes the transition short-term or long-term very easy for the pet and very easy for the caregiver. And I always, and Diane knows this because she's working on it, redundancy is key. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to leave all the dogs to their co-owners, and if their co-owners don't live in the state you're in, Oklahoma, we have learned now from COVID, they might not be able to come in and get the dogs. And that was a piece that I've added to the MAP plan now, because you really do need to have someone who's close by. And I mean, like on your block. At the beginning of COVID, I told everyone, I walked around walking my dogs, and I put 3x5 cards in everybody's post box, because we have post boxes here. And I said, hi, I know you have a dog. If anything happens to you, here's my name and my number. I live at 8 Brookside Place. If you need someone to care for your dogs, please don't hesitate to call me.
Where are you located?
I'm located in New York. It's a little bit of a far walk for you. Sorry.
No, I'm in Texas. Okay.
Oh, okay. So you're in Texas. So what you need to do is you need to walk around the neighborhood, and people who have dogs so volunteer to do it for them first, because people don't think about it. They will be so grateful. Every single person that I dropped a card off, and it was like a 3-block radius, I did it, came to me and said, we never even thought of that. But here in New York, and I'm sure it might happen in Texas soon, people go to the doctors because they're not feeling well, and they're admitted to the hospital and they've made no plans for the care of their pet. And if the parties can't get there, who's going to take care of the pet? And I always say, you know, your husband, your son, your daughter. I have 2 sons and I love my sons. And they, of course, are the first people who, you know, would take my pets if I needed to place them. However, neither of them can take them because one lives in a no-pet building and the other one has a cat that my dogs are not desensitized to cats. So that would be a really terrible situation. So I have 3 other people who my sons know and know where the dogs would go. And if my sons' lives changed, know that the dogs could transition back to them. But this is all written down. This is all written down and given to the caregivers. This is all written down, given to my sons. This is all written down, given to my attorney. This is all written down and given to my vet. And you might say, well, why does the attorney need it? And why does the vet need it? Well, if your dog or cat needs care, if you don't have that name in the file, then the vet is really by law not allowed to care for your pet. I mean, usually they do, but they're not supposed to. So if you make it easy for them and say, listen, if something happens to me, short-term, long-term, and Susie Smith or Jenny Jones bring the dogs in, here are their names, and please allow them to bring my dogs in for treatment. The vet will thank you, but at least the vet will know.
Yeah.
The attorney will know as well, because if something happens to you, he will know these are the people that Donna has set up to take these dogs. I can tell you I've spoken to about 20 different trust and estate attorney groups of 100 or more, and they all want to know about how to sell a client a pet trust. And I said to them, well, it's not about selling the client a pet trust. It's about alerting the client to why they need one, not trying to sell it to them. They need it because there has to be some stopgap between not being able to care for your pets and dying. Because if you don't die, those plans don't come to fruition. So the pet trust is that bridge that creates the people involved, the money to cover, that immediately comes into fruition if in fact something happens to you. I wrote this program because in 2013, I broke my ankle and had 9 dogs.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, I never break, but I was laying in the snow with a broken ankle about, oh, I'd say a half a mile, because I had 4 acres. So it was about a half a mile. I was at the far end of my property. And I had to walk back in the snow. It was hard enough walking out without a broken ankle, and I had to walk back in with a broken ankle. And I realized I didn't have anything in place. And probably if you're in the breed and everybody knows everybody, everybody has had over a glass of wine saying, Donna, I'll take care of your dogs if you take care of mine. And you go, great. If that's not in writing and if it's not readily available, it's not going to happen. Because just because you said it, I mean, I'm a mediator of conflicts between people over animals. And so many people make these plans. And then they die without it in writing, and somebody else gives the dog away, and you sit there and you go, but wait a minute, Donna told me I was getting that dog. And if that writing isn't in place and isn't findable, I mean, one woman came to my program in California in 2016 or 17 and made the plan and stuck it in a drawer. And so her husband didn't know. And so when he executed the will, this woman came up to him and said, listen, I know where she wanted the dogs to go. Give them to me. I'll place them. And so she did. And then the people came who were supposed to get the dogs, and he had no idea. And the woman who placed them said, too bad. They're placed. They're gone.
Sad. That's sad.
It's very sad. And so what we talk about here is what you can do. You know, if you go to my website, hamiltonlawandmediation.com, you can read all about it. But what we talk about here is what you can do immediately. So if you get sick, you need to have a 5x8 card, not a 3x5 card, for the emergency technicians to come in and help you understand the dogs can stay put. So there was a woman here in New Jersey, I believe, who had an Afghan, 9-year-old Afghan she'd lived with since it was a puppy. She fell, broke her hip, broke her ankle, something. They were taking her out, and Animal Care and Control was taking her dog because there was no indicia of what's going to happen to this dog. So when they find dogs in a house with someone who might live alone, and maybe you don't live alone, you live with your husband or your kids or whatever, they don't immediately take the dogs. If you live alone, they immediately take the dogs and bring them to Animal Care and Control. And she is now having to sue a rescue because what happens is, you know, Animal Care and Control keeps it for a little while, then they give it to a rescue, and then the rescue, you know, farms it out. So the dog is in another home, and the woman now has to try to find that other home because, of course, as you know, and I'm not criticizing rescues, they don't tell people where they put the dogs. But this woman never gave this dog up. It was circumstance.
Yeah, that's not fair. Okay.
So what you need to do is you have your files with all the names and information on it. If you have only one, try to find at least 2 more. Because if that person is busy or can't take the dog, you need to have backup, and they need to know backup. So in the case of my dogs, my sons are first, my sons and my husband are first. Then there's, you know, Carolyn McAteer, then there's Sally Anderson Bruce, and then there's Susie Sullivan. So there's 4 of them. And they all know each other. Because the other thing I really strongly recommend, and poor Diane has heard this now for so many weeks, they have to know who they are. So they have to know that the first person who's going to come and get Donna's dogs is Mary. And then if Mary can't, Mary knows she can call Sue because Sue's second. And if Sue can't, then Mary and Sue know they can call Amy because it's about redundancy. And so when you have that 5x8 card on your back door, your front door, your refrigerator that says to the EMS who are picking you up off the floor because one of the dogs tripped you, right? It says, my dogs stay home, call this number. And have 3 numbers up there because they have to get in touch with one of those people. And the luck we have is that, hey, Sally, how are you? The luck we have is that people are not going to pick up the phone on the minute we need them. So we always need redundancy. And
Hey, Sally.
So, hey, Sally. So this is one of our regulars, Donna, but I'm going to finish telling you what MAAP stands for. So the M stands for make a plan. The A stands for address the needs of the pet. The other A stands for appoint caregivers, and as I said, at least 3. And then the P stands for publish, because if people don't know what your plan is, especially the people you're relying on to carry out your plans, you know, your executor, which may be your husband or your kids or your best friend, your attorney, your veterinarian, if they don't know you have a plan, that plan is almost as useless as can be.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. I hope it helps. But the other piece that I like to remind people of is that if you're driving with your dogs to a dog show,
Huh?
remember that different states have different rules. And if you, God forbid, are in a car accident, having your people who you need to help you with your pets on a 3x5 card on the dashboard so they don't have to look for it is key.
Okay.
And those people have a form in their possession that says if something happens to Donna, I am to take Fluffy and Buster and Snoopy, then they can come and take the dogs.
Okay.
But unless that's in writing, it's not going to happen. Nobody's going to release the dogs to someone just because they say Donna said so.
Right.
So I hope that helps.
It does. Is there actually a form that I should put in each of the files?
Well,
Or-
there's a lot of forms. If you go to Hamilton Law Mediation, there's a lot of forms. I created all the templates for everybody to use. You can make your own as well. It just is, you know, you really want to be as explicit as possible, and you don't want people. I know Diane and Sally are going to be like, oh my God, again. Yes, I'm redundant. You don't want people to have to look for it, Donna.
Okay.
You want it to be so blatantly obvious what is to happen with your dogs that nobody has to think. So the refrigerator, the back door, the car dashboard, not your purse, because they have to look in your purse. And if you're unconscious, you can't tell them to look in your purse. And of course, I'm sure you have things on your crates that identify the dog, identify you as the owner, and then maybe on the back, if it's easy to get to, you can put down, you know, Mary and Sue and Amy, you know, as those backup people to call. And I always say, because we all drive all over the world showing our dogs, find out who's going to the show, and then look at your national membership catalog, your membership book, and say, oh, I'm going to Connecticut. Well, Sally lives in Connecticut, or I'm going to Arizona. So between New York and Arizona, let me see who is a member who's in every single state that I'm going to go through, who I can call and say, hey, Donna, I'm going through Texas. Can I put your name down if something happens to me to come and get my dogs? It's really important, especially now with, I'll be right with Diane, especially now with animal care and control and animal welfare people wanting to spay and alter dogs before they're returned to you.
Yeah, we have that bad in my city.
What?
We have that in my city.
You know, and I have to tell you that in my city, New York City, where Westminster is, I might add, there is an ordinance that says if your dog is caught in a city park by animal care and control, you cannot get it back unless it's been in an AKC event in the last 12 months. So I actually was told by my bar association animal law committee about this, and I went and read it. And I said, well, that really screws up, you know, a 5-month-old puppy.
Right.
And an old veteran who's been, you know, best stud dog for years, but hasn't been shown.
Right.
So these are things that people don't think about that, and now with COVID, it's even more difficult because people are dropping off their dogs because they don't have jobs and people. So if you need to do that, you need to make a plan. So that's why we have this every Wednesday. And mostly we talk about the MAP plan a little bit. And then we really talk about how we're caring for our dogs. So that's why there's sort of a community here as opposed to just, you know, here's what you do, but we talk about it every year. So Diane, you're going to add something because I know you always add things that are really helpful.
Well, I don't know if it's really helpful, but what I was going to suggest to her, because I do understand the organization of having a folder for each dog and information for each dog, but as a first responder, I don't want to look for 6 folders or 8 folders or however many dogs you have. I want one piece of paper that says call this person, and then that person can go through the folders.
Right, that's the 5x8 card on your fridge that says do not remove my dogs, call these 3 people, and whichever one come. Right.
Let those people have a piece of paper that says I'm authorized to do that, and then they can look for your folders, because what I did with mine,
well, they'll have your folders because that's what they're supposed to have.
Right. What I did with mine is I made one document that's a synopsis of everything about every dog, like, you know, their date of birth, the meds they're on, what they eat, you know, their habits, whatever. And I emailed that document to each of my people and asked them to print it and sign it. And then I have a copy that they have all signed. But if somebody comes in my house, the only thing it says is call those 3 numbers, because nobody wants to read what my dogs eat.
If they don't care about their names, they don't care what they eat.
Right.
If they know they
just
can
want to
leave them
know who
in
can
place.
come get them.
Yeah, if
Right.
they can leave them in place, they're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, brevity to me as a first responder is very important. Just tell me
Absolutely.
what I need to know and what I need to do this minute.
And it has to be easy to find. So don't put it in a
Yes.
drawer. It has, I mean, no, maybe you'll only put it up on your fridge when you're leaving, but that doesn't help. If my sister just sent around what to do if you're having a heart attack and you're alone. I said, thank you, Denise. I'm so glad that you're, you know, but it was very helpful because you're supposed to cough and breathe or something,
Yes.
And so I said, well, this was really helpful. But that's why it's got to be up on the refrigerator all the time, because if God forbid something happens, they need to not have to think. And it's not that first responders aren't, you know, with it, and they are the brightest light bulbs because we're so grateful to have them, but they really are caring about you, not your dogs. I mean, it's the bottom line. It's you, not your dogs, even though they like dogs. It's not the dogs. So now you said you had a breed, Donna. What was it? I didn't catch it.
I have Chihuahuas.
Oh, wonderful. We love Chihuahuas. Long hair or smooth?
I have both. Predominantly, hang on. Predominantly long coats, probably 90% long coats, and I have a few smooths.
Oh, wonderful. And you're in Texas, so please take good care of yourself because they're having a little bit of a New York spike.
Yes, we are.
Oh, God. So let me check in with Sally. How's everything going, Sally?
Everything's going great. My dog ran down the street last night and she saw a feral cat. And within 1 minute, a neighbor was out on the porch going, she's on her way home. She's on her way home. So they knew she was not supposed to be running by herself down the road. But everything is great here, you know, dealing with heat and humidity and just the horrible depression of COVID and the waves of kind of handling it and then just going, really? And how much it's changed our lives. And our dogs' lives.
Our dogs' lives. That's so interesting because there's 3 articles that if anybody wants them, I'll have Rose put them up on the website and on the MAP website. Because one of them was, what will the pet industry look like after the COVID disperses? And it was so interesting because it had so much information about what's this multi-trillion-dollar industry going to look like. And they said that, you know, for decades, the pet market has largely been unruffled by economic distress, but this time it's different. Normally it's bullish. They're not having that high spike. And then the next article I have that I want to share with you guys is that there's a big dog ranch in, I think it might be in Texas. No, it's in Florida, has taken in 300 dogs surrendered due to the COVID pandemic. And some of them are because people can't afford to keep them, and some of them are because the people are sick or have died. And the back and forth. So talk about the depression of COVID, right? We can't afford to buy the nice things. You know, I'm sure that that toy box that everybody was buying, the bark box that everybody was buying for their dogs, might have dropped in takers because some of us are out of work, and so that might be impacted. Having a dog. You know, people were really commenting about the people dropping the dogs off at rescue after they picked them up at the beginning of COVID to shelter in place. And I said, well, we're not walking in their shoes. And would I do that? I don't know. I'm not walking in those shoes, thank God. But I always think that it's so important to make sure that the dogs are well cared for, well fed, and have shelter. When people are so against tether laws, I sit there and I go, what, better it should run in the street? I mean, a tether is much safer if it used correctly. So I'm not against anything if it will help the dogs live happy and healthy lives. Do I want it tethered outside 24/7, you know, living underneath a broken down car? No. However, if you talk to the person, you can often either have them relinquish the dog or have them, you know, think about what they're doing. But these all or nothing things drive me nuts. And then finally, to your point, Sally, about COVID, in Calgary, Canada, a veterinarian was beat the snot out of because they couldn't take care of a guinea pig that was sick. First of all, guinea pigs are, considered exotics, and they have an exotic vet at this veterinarian's place, but she was gone. And so the veterinarian offered to do fluids, but, upfront, which I would do. I mean, I will tell you, I'm not a trust and estate attorney. I don't play one on TV. I create the MAP plan so that you can put it in your pet trust and in your will, so that you never have to pay the attorney to write it again, because you just update the MAP plan, which is already referred to in your will and in your pet trust. So you can update it all you want without having to pay an attorney's fee. So this guy immediately said, I'm not a specialist. I don't know how to take care of a guinea pig, but I can definitely do fluids and things. And they actually punched the woman in the face. I was mesmerized. But again, as Sally said, COVID is making all of us a little, I don't know, I think a little less kind, or maybe kinder. I'm not sure. I've had both ends of the spectrum. How about you guys?
Well,
There's doctors and nurses getting beat up.
Yeah.
I noticed something interesting this morning. It's hot, hazy, and humid. As the weatherman said, it's like we're in a sauna in the tri-state area. And so my husband was putting in a window air conditioning unit, and I could sense the stress and the tension of, a 70-year-old man struggling with an air conditioner. And the dog went and hid in the stairwell and peeked around the corner. And it was so interesting. I was kind of doing what I normally do, but she could sense that stress and tension. The whole energy had changed. And so I went and sat with her, but, not directly related to COVID, that's the weather, but the pets can also sense, they're very tuned into that.
Well, when I answered the talk about the vet, I said three things. I said, one is, now that we've sheltered in place with our pets and we recognize that they are so much more than just pets, they're members of our family, sometimes emotion rules better judgment. And the ability to reflect first before we open our mouth has become a little less prevalent. And veterinarians really have it rough. And I'm not saying that veterinarians are all, great people, but they try their best. I think on a general scale, they all try their best. And sometimes we as pet owners have a short fuse and need to understand that veterinarians have to run a business. I do a lot of work with veterinarians, and they always say to me, why do people always question why I should get paid? You don't ask your gynecologist or your prostate doctor if they should get paid. Don't they just want to save people's lives? And they do, but they need to turn the lights on. So veterinary medicine is one of the only medicines where people absolutely question payment for services. Maybe not us, but it's been a common theme with the veterinarians that I've talked to, that they always have to justify why they should be paid. And I often think that's got to be so stressful. To have to always justify why you're getting paid when in fact you're providing this phenomenal service. Or in the alternative, if you offer service and then the person denies it, you get punched. I mean, that's always helpful. God
That's
help.
how I found you. Was my vet posted a thing online on Facebook saying that, with a picture saying that, they'd taken in a dog due to COVID. They were doing, for a rescue organization, they were doing an exam on a dog that the owner had died and not left any instructions and everything. And somebody below had posted about your seminars. And so that's how I found you.
Wonderful. Well, please share with everybody you know. And if you could email me, if you can, to tell me who that vet is, because I would love to thank them for talking about it. And then whoever it was who suggested this, because this isn't a sales pitch. This is really, I mean, you can ask Diane and Sally. They've probably done their program completely. And it's just by being here every Wednesday and hearing all the new and interesting things that we talk about that you need to do, because we love these animals, and our crystal ball are a little, our crystal balls are a little foggy, and so we don't necessarily know what's going to happen.
What's your email, Deborah?
It's info at Hamilton, HAMILTON law, LAW, and AND mediation, MEDIATION.com. Because this is what we do for 30 minutes. We're almost up to 30 minutes. One day we stayed here for an hour because we had people from Europe here picking my brain and telling me about all sorts of rescues and shelters in the UK. So there's a huge group of people who come. We love to have a community. Oh, thank you. My colleague Rose put it in the chat box. So if you didn't write it down correctly, if you can see it, Donna, you can.
I can see it. That's good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Because it's about making sure that we have each other during this time. I know Diane has spoken many times because she's in Arizona where the heat is like blistering, and I think Texas is sort of pretty hot. Although we're in the Northeast, and I have to tell you, right, Sally, we could be, at this point, I think I'd like dry heat.
We're going to hit 100 this week.
Yeah,
so.
And what humidity, Donna? Because you're in the humid zone too.
Yeah, no, it's high because I just walk out the door and start dripping.
Yeah. I get up at like 5:30 to walk my dogs, and I have a 10-year-old who, I come up to the top of the hill, and the long walk is to the left, and the short walk is to the right, and I let her make the choice because, it could be too hot. It just and you have to think about that with your dogs, and that's why we have all of us sitting together. As Diane has said a few times during this period, because this has been on since March 31st, it's nice to have somewhere to go to talk about your dogs, where you hear about things that are happening in the area, but always positive, never negative, always positive.
Yeah, we were at the shows in Oklahoma last weekend, and I have an RV, and I have a little junior, 11-year-old boy, junior, 12-year-old boy, the junior that travels with me with his mom, and he wanted to take the puppies out on the asphalt to work the new puppies and work with them walking and the leash breaking and stuff. And I said, that's okay, Luke, but you go out there and walk out there barefooted first. And you tell me if the asphalt's too hot for those puppies to be on the ground. And so he learned how to test that.
I remember when we had the National out in Las Vegas, all of us brought socks because our Northeast dogs don't ever have that hot weather. So we put socks on them because even though they were older, we wanted to make sure they were okay because it was, I think, 108 degrees at that National.
It was concrete. It's hot.
It's hot, dry heat. It's not great. So,
sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm sorry.
Mine was a minute ago, but
yeah, and mine will ring in about a minute, or the dogs will bark. Either one of the two. We're all, we all understand. In fact, Judy usually is up here saying, "Get off the phone, Mom," because he knows when a half hour is over. But I wanted to thank all of you for coming. Are there any questions I can help you answer?
I think that's a start for me. It's a lot of good information, but I can imagine that I get better and better as hearing more each week. So.
Yeah, we look forward to you joining us because it's become, I don't know, Diane and Sally, it's become sort of a community, right? We're here and we
first time to use the Zoom like this, so I'm learning how to do that too. So
perfect. Next time maybe we'll see your cute face because
I just don't even know where to do that. So
if you go down to the left-hand side where you have the little microphone and then you have the little video, if you hit the arrow on the video, you can turn on the video. That's how you do it. It's pretty cool. If your computer has a camera. If your computer doesn't have a camera, then it'll never come on.
It has one, but I just...
True that.
That's right. Right?
True that.
It's, there you are.
Now we can see you.
Look at you. You're like the Zoom queen now. That's great. So thank you so much for coming, and I'm going to let you all go so you can all cool off. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate.
Bye,
and Donna,
Sally.
I would love to thank the vet. If you shoot me an email, I would love to thank him because it really is. It is important for them as well. Go ahead, Diane.
Deb, you were going to send us an invitation so that we could put it in our club newsletter and stuff. Could you maybe ask Rose to do that?
Yeah, I'm going to do that this week. It was, before the end of this week, because it's going to be the workshop's going to be probably the weekend of the 24th, 25th.
Okay, well,
we might do it either Friday or Saturday. We haven't decided.
We're going to be sending out notice of a meeting sometime this week because we're starting to attempt to plan the November specialties. So we're going to be having a Zoom meeting. So if I can get that and put it up on the screen to share at the Zoom meeting, that would be great.
Awesome. I will make sure that it gets done. We have been, I have very busy clients recently who are having difficulties, probably because of COVID and short tempers, short fuses. So we're talking them all off the ledges, as I do, and we're all working together. So I'll get that to all of you. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, write to me, let me know. Give your dogs a hug and a kiss from me. Stay cool. And I will see you next week.
Thank
God
you.
willing.